Hey everybody, welcome back to new videos channel, and today we look into organizing our components, and not in a big components folder, but actually more grouped by concern. Here we go. When using Vue or also Nuxt.js, commonly you have one big components folder and throw your single file components in there. And while this works totally fine, at some point people mentioned, hey, look, does it really scale, especially if you have a lot of components? And well, to some degree, yes, you need very long component names, so to say, but especially if you also have the pages folder where you use file system based routing, then sometimes you want to put components that are only used in a single page or on like a group of pages closer to them. So in this video, we have a look into doing exactly that with Nuxt.js because it's possible right now, and also talk about why this didn't make it into the core, but how it's still possible to do with some settings to tweak. And for that, of course, we have a very simple demo application, as minimal as possible, just some head styles, compatibility data, and so on. I've removed the app.view, so we only have an index.view that basically says, okay, let's go, let's do it. And in the browser, this looks like this. Now, what do we actually want to achieve? As said before, we can put our components in a components folder. So we could create a new folder, or like just create a file straight away, say components, my component.view. Okay, let's create a component, easy as 1, 2, 3, and say this is my component. So far, so good. Now we can use that, it's auto imported, it's all fine. But what if we have a page, let's say users index.view, and we want to use that component only here? Well, we can, right? We can just say straight away my component, and we're good to go. This works fine. And if we go to the browser, then we see, okay, this is my component. No problem. But as I said before, well, organization-wise, if you have a lot of components, you maybe want to move them closer to where it actually lives, closer to that user index.view. So what if we could put that components folder just in here and say, let's remove the whole thing? Well, if we do it like that at the moment and check the browser, we see, no, didn't really work. We have some errors because it couldn't be resolved. So yeah, that doesn't work by default, but what if it could? And actually, after the video where I showcased how to migrate a Next.js application over to Nuxt.js in less than an hour, some people also mentioned that. Some folks mentioned that they like the Next.js code organization, where they actually can organize their code logically, so not putting every component to a global space. And I definitely agree with that, because the typical issue with, well, group by type or group by concern is also something we see in the options and composition API debate a lot. So in a way, it would be nice to have exactly the structure shown before. And of course, some people created an issue for feature request in the Nuxt repository. Already in September last year, so more than half a year ago, this issue was created of saying, okay, can we maybe have a way to group components more, well, closer to the pages that are used? And there are already quite some ways to slice your application into different domains and feature sets. So back then I also said, okay, you can use Nuxt layers and it will be fine to separate or to slice. So you can have mini Nuxt applications. Also made the video on that. If you haven't seen that, take a look. It's really, really great. A lot of bigger applications I've seen use the pattern. But of course, this might not be enough, or also for small, medium applications, this, well, works, but it's also a bit different in terms of slicing, because there you say, I don't know, here is my, let's say, shopping cart layer, or here is my admin area layer. So you slice more by, well, domain or feature, and not saying these are the components used in a certain page. So there was a discussion along that. And Danny Rowe also mentioned a blog post from Josh Deltner that it's already possible to implement it in userland. So also here, take a look at Josh's article that's linked below. But luckily, a few things were changed so we can even have that a bit easier. Because the issue continues, and also this was discussed in the Nuxt.js team, so in our round, and eventually was decided to not implement that straight away in the core. You can go through the issue and my reasoning here that I've explained, but we wanted to make sure that it's easier in the userland to do that. So let's jump into a demo application and see how we can do this with just, I think, like 10 lines of configuration, and then you're good to go. All right, so we know this breaks and doesn't work at the moment, so let's make it work. And the first thing we can do, well, this all is actually related to the Nuxt config. The first thing we want to do is we want to make sure to actually load all the components from the pages folder. And this is a bit counterintuitive because usually we have a components folder, but still. What we can set up here is a components array. And here we just say, okay, which folder do we take? Well, components, totally fine. And of course, in addition to the components folder where you might store your global components, you can also say, okay, how about we have a new set? And that set would be the path is in pages. Wonderful. So we say everything in pages is treated as a component. But wait, that's not entirely correct. So now we want to define a pattern to see which components should be picked up, because not every page should be rendered as a component. And to do that, we basically set up the pattern as mentioned. It's a glob pattern, and say everything that starts with that components folder. So everything inside the components folder, no matter the depth, is that considered that. And also we want to disable the path prefix. So we set that to false here. So it is not listed as users components, my component, or similar. We don't want that. We just want to have it as my component. And then we're fine. So from here, we're good to go and things will work again. Take a look at the browser. This is fine, wonderful. But now there's one more problem. So if we now open the address bar and type in components/my component, then we will see, wait, this is loading and actually also shows the component. And this is not what we want. So we have to exclude all the components in that component folder, in every possible component folder, from being pages. And we can actually do that pretty easily, thanks to a new setting. So this setting is top level inside the pages object, and it's called pattern. So similar to the pattern of our components folder in there. And the idea is to define patterns that should be matched, and everything that matches these patterns is recognized as pages. Otherwise, it's not. So you can even exclude pages from file system-based routing. And by default, we say, okay, everything that's a view component is a page. But we want to also make sure, and that's the best part, we can also define negative patterns. So everything that's inside a components folder should not be a page. And as you see, this is actually matching the pattern down here, of course, but it's negative. So we exclude that. And if we now have a look on, well, users, components, my components, we see 404 as it's expected, because now these components are all excluded. And you have exactly what you need. You have the pattern to put your components closer to pages where you need them. You always know, okay, it doesn't matter if it's called underscore partials or components, you can define your own configuration for that and your own convention, and things are not accidentally leaking. So far, so good. Now I'm curious, have you used the pattern before? Were you aware? Let me know in the comments below if you also know or didn't know about the settings. Yeah, drop it all in there. And of course, take a look at the latest Deja Vu episode is coming out soon, I'd say, with Sebastian Chopin, where we talk about the history of Nuxt.js and, well, much more around that and Nuxt Labs. And I think that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed the video. Take a look at, well, all the recent ones, and see you all soon, folks. Happy hacking.